One big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Reason Reborn. I am so sorry that it's been such a long time that we recorded. A little behind the scenes, we have recorded an episode, but it was tragedy. I won't go into the details. But now we are back. I apologize because I've been sick throughout the last few months, and it's just been a struggle getting back to normal, but we are sort of there now. So hopefully we will keep this regular schedule like we had before. Again, apologies. It's all my fault. So don't blame cardiac. It's all on me this time. How are you doing today, sir?
Just out here being innocent of all wrongdoings. So
For a change, yes, you can avoid any wrongdoing. A lot went on in the world, a lot of changes and things like that, but too much to discuss. So we'll just talk about the burning pile of crap that has occurred over the last week and a half or so. Because there's always a burning pile of crap in the world, right? It doesn't matter what week it is, you always find something.
I'll be sure some of them are more long-term burning, but yeah.
So
Things pop up.
Yeah. So we almost lost the debt ceiling, the arbitrary, I guess you could say, the size of America's wallet, so to speak, which makes no sense since the national debt kind of isn't a real number if you think about it. Like, this country ain't gonna stop buying shit, right? So why do you need a debt ceiling? When I heard this, I was like, why do we have this? Like, it ain't like you're not gonna approve an $800 billion budget for the military next year. So what are we doing?
I was under the impression that little fire, as you say, was over. The debt ceiling talks are around money we've already allocated and spent, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah. So okay, here's the thing about the debt ceiling. Debt ceiling is basically the government pretty much raising the level of the amount of debt that they can have in whatever period of time basis. I don't know if it's yearly or not, but they vote on this to ensure that money that they've already spent on bills will be paid or can be paid. If they do not set the debt ceiling, then there's the potential of defaulting on these things because the government's not approving this money being spent. The kicker is this money has already been spent technically, or rather they've already contracted to pay for these services or whatever it is that the debt ceiling is to cover. So it's basically like, I build you a computer and I give you the computer. And you're playing on that computer for months. And then I send you the bill later. Now, you've already signed a contract saying that you'll pay the bill once I send it. So you can't really renege on it. But if you do, that causes a lot more problems because I'm just going to come and get the computer. And then you're going to be out without the computer and you can't do what you need to do. And of course, the world's not going to work like that. But if they call your debts, then on a world scape, it's probably going to be a lot worse than them just repossessing your shit. So,
I mean, just the way you feel the need to explain this, the analogy you have to craft, which, no analogy is perfect, but it's like, to your point, you just listen to this discussion. You're like, why does anything work like this? This is stupid. On multiple levels, it's kind of dumb that it works that way in the first place. It's dumb that it became a problem in this sense. And this happened before. I guess the Republicans just kind of held the issue hostage, probably in this case to combat the infrastructure, or was it infrastructure or was it the
it's
voting
the
rights issue?
infrastructure bill, the 3.5 billion infrastructure bill that they're trying to get passed. We're kind of holding it hostage, saying like, well, maybe if you come down on the like price that you want, we will let you have this. Yeah.
Another thing that should not fucking work that way at all. One, they shouldn't be able to do that, and two, I mean, the fact that they're going to essentially hold the well-being of the country hostage over that political battle. When you first started bringing this up, I just thought, this is why people don't think shit of the government. Like these kind of stupid things that could have extreme implications for Americans, and they just do it like it's a game and there's no actual consequence for it.
Yeah. And, the reason why they end up installing a temporary debt ceiling, which is even crazier to me, is because eventually Democrats were able to convince a couple of Republicans to threaten to filibuster this issue to get it through, which I'm sorry, not to filibuster, but to suspend the filibuster on this issue so they can just get a minority vote instead of having to get the 60 votes to have this actually pass. They could have gotten just the simple majority of 50. And once the threat of the filibuster being taken came into play, Mitch McConnell then was like, all right, we'll give you a short term and then we'll discuss this further. Because they don't want to get rid of the filibuster, because the filibuster is an effective tool for them to block whatever they want, whenever they want. So it's sad that you have to hold hostage. Like they hold you hostage over something that's useful. So to get the useful thing, you have to hold them hostage over something that's debilitating, even more so than them holding hostage. Not only it's an official way of holding things hostage that they're scared of losing instead of just being outright dicks. It's weird. So fucking weird.
I mean, you're right. It's in terms of the debt ceiling little tactic there. It's like they have this gun that they can use anytime, the debt ceiling needs to be raised or whatever.
Yeah.
And in order to stop them, you held their other gun of the filibuster away. They shouldn't be able to do either of those fucking things. That's kind of
no, they shouldn't.
You suppress one gun. I'm done with the analogy, but it's fucking. And again, these things done in just bad faith for no good reason, and what happens to them? Nothing. They're fine. They have their jobs. They're going to continue on. That's the game, and they're allowed to play it that way, and there's no real consequence for it.
Yeah, and it's very infuriating because it holds up anything that can benefit people. It's it's just crazy. And what's even crazy is okay, I could slightly understand Democrats' apprehension of going full on hardcore on them, especially since in the Senate, while you do have a majority, it's not a real majority because you're somehow being held hostage by two of your constituents, with Sinema and Manchin always I don't know if I'm gonna vote for this. I don't know, guys. This might not be that great. But it's just even when they do somehow miraculously get to the 60 majority, I don't think anything's going to really change that much, because Republicans have this weird way of boxing Democrats into this corner when they don't have any reason to be in the corner. It's I'm bigger than you. I should I should slap the shit out of you. Why am I letting you dictate to me what's happening? But it never fucking fails. And then when it's reversed and they have the majority, Republicans go fucking full on and be like, fuck you, bitch, smack. We're going to do what I say.
It points to two issues. One, like I said, when I mentioned bad faith, Republicans have no shame. So they're willing to just do things that one ought not do. Plain and simple. But two, that's one of the major flaws in our system is the way we are set up. We have the ability for a minority to fuck with the majority. And you see this at all levels. Like I remember, some months ago on the podcast we were talking, I was like, one of the scariest things about these, modern Republicans is like, they're just not really beholden to their own fucking base in terms of what the majority of their base wants. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about the infrastructure package, a lot of them like that shit. And yet it still doesn't fucking matter,
Yeah, because if they vote for something that the other side created, then they're bowing down. It's just like, it's funny. I'm glad you said that because it reminds me of one of the points that I saw. Lindsey Graham was upset that they let this temporary debt limit go because it's like, we're capitulating. This is wrong. We shouldn't do this. And Ted Cruz is upset. It's like, they threatened democracy by trying to take away the filibuster and effectively take away our ability to do what's fair and right for America. And it's just like, bitch, no. You are the reason why we're in this situation because you are effectively trying to stop the United States from settling debts. You're willing to threaten having the government shut down just so you can make a power play and come back and say bullshit like this. No, but it works every time for them. And it's fucking maddening.
It makes me want to go. I've referenced the book and it makes me want to go back through it, but it was a book on the history of the Senate. And they talked a lot about, the rise of the filibuster. And because I just mentioned, we have this dynamic where the minority can kind of shit on the majority. And that's something they've really tried to build in. Even saying decades feels kind of short. Like for pretty much since the beginning, they've always had this sort of attitude of trying to ensure their power while they know that they're not in the majority. I mean, that's why we have the representation system we do have, right? Look at the amount of representatives different states get. The South really kind of bullied their way into getting that. That's why we have a Senate really in the first place. The House of Representatives is a bit more representative based on population size and whatnot, but in the Senate, you have 2 representatives for every state, regardless of state population, right? Why? Right. Because the South wanted to be able to.
It's unfair. We don't have as many people as you do, so we need to be equally represented.
Right. And of course, the Senate is a bit things have to, after passing through the House, they have to pass through the Senate. So it's kind of, in that sense, higher in terms of power than the House is. But it's like they've always pulled this move where even though the shit they like, their values, all that stuff may not be the majority view, or they don't have the most people or whatever, they've baked it into the system early on where they can just still succeed anyway. Yeah. Early on, like I said, a lot of founding fathers did not want to have the Senate as an institution in general. We have Congress, we have the House and the Senate. They didn't want the Senate for this specific fucking reason.
Yeah.
Which I think we had a conversation a while back about, getting rid of the filibuster. I was like, honestly, you should get rid of the Senate altogether. Because you see how easy it is to fuck with the power dynamic there. And it's not like we really wanted to have it in the first place. And we should, like I said, we should just have the House. If anything, if we have to have that kind of structure, the Senate is a problem.
Well, if you're going to have the Senate, it should be structured the same way that the House is.
It would feel redundant, but sure. But it's just think of in American life, we kind of think of the Senate as essentially where legislation goes to die. You know what I mean? Like things pass through the House
I mean, that's
relatively often and dies in the Senate. And the fact that they have that reputation alone feels like a problem.
And it's why I could totally agree with like the idea of getting rid of them, because think about other countries and their structures, like England, they just have parliament. There's not like a parliament junior or anything like that that has to approve the things that parliament approve. You know what I mean? It's like this one huge body that has representatives from all over, covering all districts, gets together and they all vote. You have over 400 representatives in the House of Representatives. I think that's enough votes to be able to determine who wants what. And you know what? If somebody has the majority, oh well, because that's the weird thing about this whole Senate anyway, is that even though it was constructed to try to like even out things don't always even out, because gerrymandering, just like it does with the House, will affect who gets these seats. And because it's so few seats, it becomes way too much more important for the Senate, because you take a state like Georgia, that you have two Democratic senators right now who won by the skin of their teeth because people are shifting in their political mindset. And you're having more Democratic, liberal-minded people move to Georgia. All that could be flipped by them just redistricting that shit.
To your point about like, a small number being an issue, like it puts us in a precarious position, because I was just thinking back to I'm living in California. We had the that special election, I guess, where Larry Elder was threatening to be our new governor. And one of the more interesting talking points was essentially the idea was brought up that if he won, he would appoint a new senator to replace Feinstein. And the fact that it was an attempt to replace the governor here locally in California is one thing, but that's how easy it would have been for him to just like fuck with the balance of the Senate. You know what I mean? Like the Senate itself is just such a precarious balance that like anything could happen. Even before the Feinstein thing, it was like, I've heard people say it's like all it would take is for one of these motherfuckers to get hit by a bus, and then all of a sudden we're looking at a completely different landscape. It's like, why are we in this situation where that's important?
Yeah, like if one of the Georgia senators, something happens, one of the Democratic guys, well, if Ossoff or Warnock goes down, fucking Kemp can put whoever the fuck he wants. Yeah, so there goes your majority, your slight majority.
And in the case of Elder, by the way, it wasn't an idle threat, because he said he would appoint a Republican. So
yeah,
we shouldn't be in these sorts of positions.
Speaking of the Georgia thing, by the way, one of the early front runners for competing against Senator Warnock is former University of Georgia running back Herschel Walker, who appeared at the Republican National Committee and gave a speech this past election. So that's an interesting thing. They're going the sports ball route to sway people, and because he's black, that just makes it even better. It's like, hey, you're gonna go against the brother who won us our only national championship? Come on.
I just had to suppress all my prejudices. It's like you said, like former running back. It's like, oh.
I mean, come on.
They'll shit on him because he's a sports ball guy.
We have an Alabama senator who got his job simply because he coached Auburn. Come on. That man has no real political resume, but he coached Auburn. So God damn it, he's our senator.
I'm trying to resist
Tommy
the urge to
Tuberville.
rant
Yeah.
about the weight sports ball has in our culture. And I will successfully resist that.
Oh man. It is kind of sad how celebrity like can sway things. You know, remember, Ronald Reagan didn't just become president because he was a former actor. He also was the governor of California as well because he was an actor. He wasn't even a popular actor, that popular of an actor either. That's the sad part. But he traded his celebrity for success. So, and again, look at our last president. You know,
Yeah,
the man was a reality TV star.
I mean, just to not put it all on Republicans, there were plenty of people calling for Oprah to run. So
I know, yeah.
People think celebrity is inherently a reason to listen to people.
Mm-hmm. It's a damn shame. Damn shame, but
yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
I can say all I want that we should get rid of the Senate, but like that's never going to fucking happen because
and that's the sad thing is that the reason we have the Senate is because it's supposed to be, checks and balances. One person is supposed to make sure the other doesn't run rampant, but it ain't working out the way that you thought it would, dog.
To me, that's a myth anyway, right? Because the House would serve that function just fine, and there were plenty of people back when the Senate was created who made that same argument. But
yeah, because the purpose of having a Congress is initially to check the president, whereas the legislative branch is to check both. So why do you need two things in one branch to check the president? You really don't.
Oh. But I mean, the reason I say it won't change is because one, I don't really see anybody making the extreme argument I am that we should remove them. And two, even if they were, I don't even know how you could begin to do such a thing if possible.
You know what?
I don't even know what the avenue for that would be.
Here's a concession. We won't get rid of the senators. We'll just fold them into the House and create a new district for them. And just like say that like you have an extra 2 districts.
So every state gets like an extra 2 and they just become congressmen and women?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed, but like I said, I don't know what the legislative run path would be to even make such a thing happen. And again, I'm pretty sure the senators themselves, just out of self-interest, would of course fuck against such a thing. But
yeah,
nobody wants to lose power and prestige.
No, of course not. Especially Mitch McConnell. That man, he will literally go to his grave before he lets you do something like that. So,
pretty much.
So yeah. Oh man. So
but at least get rid of the filibuster or fucking something, because same problem there.
Yeah. Speaking of things that need to be getting rid of, the state of Texas. Governor Greg Abbott has issued an executive order banning all state entities, including private employers, from enforcing vaccine mandates. How?
Pretty sure DeSantis pulled a similar move, didn't he? A while back. Or at least tried to.
I think he tried to, but I don't think he went that hard in the paint with it. I think he said that he didn't he didn't obligate companies to have a mandate. That's what he did. This guy is telling you it's against Texas law for you to treat your business the way that you want to, effectively killing the idea of how they're always screaming about how it's a free market. Because in a free market, if I have my own business, as long as I'm not breaking any actual laws. You can't tell me what requirements I have to have for my employees to work. So they've effectively taken over the private industry by regulating how they mandate their hiring and like firing policies.
We have to talk about free markets.
I'm just saying.
But my point is, the idea of free markets, those old school conservative ideas are not things most of them really fucking believe in. Of course not. I mean, like, so it feels disingenuous and like a waste of time to bring it up because, and to be fair, a lot of them are more focused on, more culture war issues nowadays anyway. But even before, like, that's, for example, why they didn't give a shit about Trump's tax cuts, as he called it. Like, they don't really care about debt and fiscal responsibility and all that shit. And when they talk about freedom, they just meant freedom for them to do whatever the fuck they wanted. A lot of them have, let's drop some shit there, business ties. They don't want their businesses to be regulated and have to, do things like give a shit about your workers, not pollute the environment. Like, anything that's kind of a hassle or cost them money, they don't want to deal with. They want freedom from constraint and consequence, really, is what that means. They don't actually care.
They don't want to have to deal with any responsibilities or consequences. Just let me do what the fuck I want.
Even when you talk about in schools, like, it depends on the point of view, because if you were talking about freedom to push religious values on kids, then they'd be like, yeah, fuck that. You don't have to teach safe sex or any of that stuff. But if it doesn't jive with their values, they're all for shutting you down. They don't care. So,
well, importantly, with this, if it cuts into your profits or your ability to make money, no, because that's one of the problems. I didn't put this on the list, but it's been shown that this month we didn't gain as many jobs as they expected. I think the national number was something around 194,000 new jobs were created, which was very low than what they thought. And while unemployment isn't necessarily going up per se, it's becoming increasingly clear that the plan that many of them had, where they started cutting out the federal benefits for unemployment, would be a catalyst to spur people to go back to the workplace. It didn't work because people don't want to go back to the workplace simply because, what am I going to do? Am I going to starve at home on unemployment, or am I going to starve working to death for a job that's not going to pay me enough to make ends meet? And people rather not work themselves to death and wait and try to find something that can be more helpful or beneficial to them, then go back to like these jobs that are out there, And I feel like that's part of why they're doing this too, because if there's no mandate, well, shit, all you people who talking about, well, if my job's going to make me do this, I'm not going to work. That takes you off the board, even though, let's be honest, all y'all motherfuckers were going to go get that shot anyway once you start going broke. Just like with the whole thing with Southwestern. Did you hear about that?
No. You sent me something about the...
Well, this is the thing I sent you was like more recent, but this is different. Yeah. Back when Southwestern, like, once the virus got it, I mean, not virus, but the vaccine got approved, the Pfizer vaccine, pretty much Southwest said that everybody has to be vaccinated if you're going to work. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come back to work. Of course, there was a lot of employees who bucked, about 500 I think they said, signed a petition saying that they're not coming back. So when the mandate started, Southwest fired about 300 people or 200, 300 people who said that who refused to get vaccinated. They were like, okay, not when you can't come back because that's the rules. The rest of the people went and got vaccinated because they realized that they weren't playing with them. And that's the thing. Texas is taking it out of the hands of jobs because they know that these jobs aren't going to play with these people and just be like, well, no, just come back, please. We'll let you do whatever you want. It don't work like that, especially since Texas is starting to have a more increasingly liberal-minded business center where they're getting a lot of people coming from, California and other liberal states because the tech center is starting to boom even more in Texas. And generally speaking, you get a lot of liberal-minded people in those positions. So they're cutting that off because they know that these companies are going to be like, no, get vaxxed or stay home and find another job. And they don't want to do that. I mean, shit, Elon Musk just announced that he's going to move his facilities to Texas. Now, Elon Musk isn't the type of person who's going to put a vaccine mandate because he's a dickhead himself. But if he decided to go with the vaccine mandate, that's a lot of people that might not be moving from California to give them this big business center with, Tesla. You know what I mean? So they're cutting that shit off so they don't have to deal with it, and they can keep these people coming in. At least that's their hope, is that they can keep people coming in and they can force other people not to fucking be hesitant about working.
When you talk about the businesses going to Texas, again, that's another indicator of their so-called fiscal values, is that they're so business friendly that a lot of businesses go there to avoid certain tax situations. So it's like, I don't know, that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, but they're so good at controlling this fucking narrative to where they get credit for adhering to values they don't really fucking have. And it drives me crazy.
Yeah, they find ways to skirt rules.
I mean, as people point out, the debt has gone up every time one of them has been president. I mean, usually it's one of the Democratic presidents that follows and helps kind of help balance that shit out. And yet it's the Republicans that have the reputation for being fiscally responsible, even though they never have been. Even though they're willing to spend metric fuck tons of money on, say, the military, even when it's not warranted. I mean, like, they're so good at controlling the narrative that we have to talk in their terms, even when it's a complete lie. But to put back to the Texas issue in particular, as far as banning businesses and schools and all these organizations from being able to put in vaccine mandates, it's fucking October. You know what I mean? Like, it's been almost a year since we had the vaccine. And these people are still doing this stupid shit. I don't know where the numbers are now. I'm of the hope, I assume, that they're falling again, but like, we could be in a so much better place if we didn't have people like Abbott, like the people on Fox, all these people being so counterproductive for no fucking reason at all.
And what's wild is these are people who are actually vaccinated that are fucking telling you don't believe the hype.
I mean, that's where the incentives though are, right? Like they want to stoke the flame of the crazy people on the right. I mean, it's a weird feedback loop because you see in Fox News, they tend to lean into all this random shit, either create or help spur on conspiracy theories, especially when they target Democrats. I find myself wondering if Trump was still president, what would the move look like right now? Would they still be like, don't take the vaccine?
Yeah, I think it would be worse. I think it would be like, I don't think that we would have had the distribution that we had when Biden first came in. Like
Fair.
the move that got it to everybody. I think it would have been a much slower. I think we would have still been in a very slow distribution process, because I think what he would have did was he would have tried to distribute it to his people first, the executives, the higher ups, his supporting people. I don't think the public distribution would have been the way that it has been. I mean, remember, he had the virus during that early part of his thing. And not the virus, the vaccine. And he was boasting about, but he was boasting something about like 100,000 people got vaccinated. And it's just like, what? It was like some small number like that. In comes Biden, and from the day he was, inaugurated to the beginning of the summer, like 40% of the entire country all of a sudden was vaccinated, at least. Flash forward to now, and you're getting around that 70% number. States within months of the vaccine being available readily were closing in on getting to that 70%.
So I agree that the distribution would be weaker, partially because Trump and therefore his administration didn't seem like people who actually want to do jobs.
They were still denying it was a problem.
I mean, that's part of it too, but I really mean like more the public attitude towards it, especially in, within the political right. Like, and maybe this couldn't happen too, because it kind of presupposes that you had a strong distribution network in the first place. But because like part of it is, especially in Fox, they kind of frame it as like Democrats and liberal, and specifically Biden trying to bully you into taking the vaccine. You know what I mean? And I have to think like, what would be the strategy for making that kind of argument if they were still in charge? But to your point, if they were in charge, we probably wouldn't have the distribution anyway, and it would probably be like a moot point.
Yeah.
We wouldn't get far enough to even have that concern. So
no,
never mind. I rescind my question.
There would have never been any like ability for companies to give mandates, because there'd be no federal mandate. And again, we probably would still be waiting to see if the government would actually approve the vaccine. Yeah.
And then even then, it would probably turn into, how should I put it, like a bit more of a transactional kind of move between the states, which he was kind of doing early on anyway. But I think Biden put so much energy and money into distribution, it made that not as big a deal. It still happened a bit, especially in states where infections started to uptick a lot. I think New Jersey had something like that at one point, where they were kind of begging for more vaccines while we were still in the middle of early distribution. But yeah, like I said, if they were still in charge, it would be a very different landscape. So
yeah, it is funny that you brought up the transactional thing, because it made me wonder, would it be a free distribution? Would it be only for people who are insured? Would it be like only for certain tax brackets or certain positions? Would it have, instead of it being just an open distribution like it was, would it be like on a priority basis as far as what your job is? Like, who knows?
I could see it definitely costing money, because again, part of the Biden administration push to make it free was to make it available because they believe that it works, right? Whereas Trump himself was flip-flopping all the time. And of course, other conspiracy nuts were going to do the same thing. So obviously they're not going to be as motivated to make it available, because they're not committed to the idea that it would help stamp out the threat. They were barely committed to the idea that there was a threat at all. So
yeah,
they were the same people insisting every store can stay open and not giving a shit. So fair enough.
Yeah.
I like to look into the alternate universe, see how they're going, but
Yeah, nah, I don't think I want to do that what if episode. Nah, not for me. But yeah, so Texas once again, like, so remember, ladies, don't get an abortion. You can't. You're not allowed, and you can get sued if you get one. Everybody else, you can't say shit about your employee hacking up a lung all over you at work because he's not legally bound to be at work and be well and be vaccinated, so he can't get you sick. So you're just gonna have to get that COVID. And don't remember, winter's still coming. If it snows again in Texas, good Lord, where y'all gonna get your power from?
I mean, like I said, it's October and we're still dealing with this type of idiocy. But as somebody who, one, has been fully vaccinated and two, requires that to get back into the office, it's not a big fucking deal. You know what I mean? Like, in my office in particular, and I'm sure maybe other offices would have different solutions for this, maybe more higher or lower tech, but you take your vaccination card, you submit a picture of it online to our little work portal, and then that's just kind of it. You can go back to the office. In my office, you need a badge to get in. Your badge is activated once you have your full vaccination thing. You just gotta go on business as fucking usual. Like, and I think we had this conversation the other day real quick, but a lot of people, especially Democratic politicians, will point out that it's not a mandate that you have to get vaccinated. You have the choice of, getting weekly testing. And I just think that's fucking dumb. Like, first of all, I think you should go further to make them actually get vaccinated, because I assume you can get the virus within that week gap between testing and spread it, but whatever, letting that go. But I can't imagine choosing the hassle of having to get tested weekly, every week, when you can just get the fucking shot and move on. Like, when I'm back in the office, I don't think about like, oh gosh, I have to do such and such. I don't have to do a fucking thing because I just got my little poke a couple months back, and now I'm just, you know what it is? Go back to last year where we didn't have a vaccine, we didn't have anything, and we were all begging for like life to go back to normal. I feel pretty normal now because I got this stupid fucking thing. And I thought that's what we all wanted a year ago, was for life to go back to normal. And you motherfuckers that were complaining about it the most are the ones keeping us from going back to normal.
Yeah. All you gotta do is take your medicine. Take your medicine, motherfucker. And you can go back to normal.
Something you have to take all the time. You take it a couple times and you move the fuck. Like, I went to a movie theater one time. I go to the office. I had a meeting in the same room with a motherfucker, and I feel, mostly comfortable because like, do the shit you're supposed to do. And I mean, to be fair, again, just kind of by rule, everybody in that building had to do the same thing, right? So that might be part of my comfort there, but I just don't understand.
You work with a bunch of adults, and it's okay when you're in a room full of adults. But like with me doing DoorDash, it's still harrowing because I don't know who the fuck is like. I see so many people walking the streets without masks and trying to walk into places without masks. It's like, yo, I don't know what y'all doing. Like, there's nothing that says that you can test somebody. Like, I can't. But like, excuse me, are you vaccinated? Okay, cool. That's the thing. Like, at least you're you have environments where they control that shit. I wish they would do it in more places, like with movies saying that they might start like requiring people to be vaccinated and shit like that. Yes, please. Because if you want me back in the theater, I need to know that I'm in a theater with people where at least if I do get COVID, it's not going to fucking like, harm anybody next to me. Because, even if you get vaccinated, COVID can get on you, whatever, you can spread it that way because it's airbound and certain things. But at least I know that this shit has little to no chance of getting somebody sick to the point where they can die.
And yeah, like the more you put those rules in place, I think the more normal life can be. Like I went to the theater specifically to see Shang-Chi, and it felt, aside from the fact that we were all wearing masks in the theater, which I kind of don't mind doing anyway because I don't need to be breathing your gross air. I mean, obviously I'm still breathing through the mask, but you know what I mean? Like it was like the first time I felt like kind of normal in forever. You know what I mean? And I was able to do that feeling fine because I got the cootie shot. Like you guys are resisting getting back to normal, which is the thing you said you want. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's irrational. Like it's like the kid who asked their parents for a puppy like every fucking day, and then they find him getting the fucking dog, and they're just like, I don't want to walk this motherfucker. Like, what?
Right. You want something, but you don't want to take the responsibility of what comes with it. It's so dumb.
But I mean, in this case, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. There's no hassle. There's nothing. At least, I guess my dog analogy was poor there because at least the dog is actually a responsibility. Here, this just means you could like walk into places again. There's no negative consequence to it.
Yeah, once you get the shot,
There's
you're
no work.
free of all. You did your part.
You have less
your shot. You wore
responsibility
your
going.
mask. You did your part.
It's fucking psychotic. I don't know what to say about it. Oh my God. Yeah, fuck Evan. Like I said, it's fucking middle of October. We're gonna be in 2022 soon. Jesus Christ, time flies. And we're still dealing with idiot shit like this. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's...
And of course, the rest of the world still needs to get vaccinated, which is not going well. So that's great.
Damn shame. Damn shame. All right. On to less political, but even more sad shit. So you're not a sports ball guy. I am.
I am not.
And it's been a really crazy time for sports ball people over the last week or two. Starting with the coach who, after a loss, got caught in a bar getting a lap dance from a young lady. Funny thing about that, this man is married with three children, and that wasn't his wife giving him a lap dance. So there was a bit of controversy of that, but he has been saved by racism and misogyny and bigotry and homophobia because the now former head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, John Gruden, had an interesting week. I say week because, like I said, it started sometime like at the weekend and it ended today. Like it honestly was a 5-day trip, which is kind of goddamn sad. Going from being gainfully employed under a 7-year, $100 million contract to not having no job in 5 days. Like, damn. So news came out that in 2011, there was an email that was sent by him via NFL official email in which he made some disparaging racial remarks about DeMaurice Smith, who is an NFL executive, head of the Players Association. In the email, he made a comment about how dumb Morris, as he called him, had lips the size of Michigan tires. And his defense was well, if you look at the email, also like making remarks about how I hate the NFL commissioner. Not sure how that's a good defense, but that was his excuse.
Am I supposed to respond to that? Like,
I'm just trying to like gauge how you feel about that. Like,
I mean, I wish I could say more context would help, but like,
well, but the thing is,
I can't imagine.
that is the context. He was complaining about this guy because the guy's the head of players association, and his job is to protect the players and to make sure that teams are doing the right things as far as players' health, properly paying them, all of that. It's basically a position like union official, so to speak, for employees. So
cool, but like, certainly you can shit on that and complain about that without being like, hey, this Negro has giant lips.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Homophobic language. Like, it's
exactly.
I don't think it's, if you have an opinion on like how the sport should be, and you naturally have a conflict with this other employment position, whatever, that's fine. You can have that out. That's not a big deal, but it really doesn't explain why you had to go down that specific, like, the size of somebody's lips is not at all related to whatever
angst that you have about the way things are going.
Right. It's totally unrelated. So
it's one thing if you would have like said, this bitch gets on my nerves. It's like, okay, that is like that's a derogatory term. And that was his defense, was he was making derogatory terms towards the commissioner. He wasn't calling the commissioner a racial slur, though. I mean, it would have been weird because his commissioner is also white. So if he was to be like in that cracker Robert Goodell or something like that, and then it was like, yo, you just all over the place, sir. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, but nah. And the email came to light because it was flagged for his derogatory language, and sent to the NFL officials like for review. Now, nothing happened to him, of course, because he's still, a head coach.
I mean, I would just say real quick, like, derogatory language, disrespectful language, none of that's cool either. But that was a very intentional effort to craft a racial line, like the lipstick. You know what I mean? Like, that's not just like a slip of the, I called him an asshole in the heat of the moment. Like, no, that's a completely different level of thought process. This is not you have to put in to make a racial line like that.
It's not even like he just went simple with this black fucker with big ass lips. He like literally like went hard on the joke, saying that the size of Michelin tires. Like, goddamn.
like imagine if he was like talking about a woman who, appears more masculine or something like that. If you want to, you said, "Oh, this bitch," that's just kind of off the top, rage filled shit talking. But like, if he said something about like something homophobic or whatever, like about the way she looks, I'd be like, that's, that takes more thought to craft. You know what I mean? So that's not as, you certainly can't argue that you were just in the heat of the moment or something like that. That takes a lot more mental effort to do. That's all I'm saying.
I'm glad you mentioned the misogyny and the homophobia, though, because days later, today, the day of the recording, a New York Times article came out in which they found even more emails, which included him talking in a misogynistic way about female employees, and in particular, complaining about females becoming referees and how they have no place doing so in the business. He made homophobic comments, specifically complaining about how people are celebrating homosexual players being drafted and getting the opportunity to play in the NFL. He also made some more racist comments and like pretty much went off on the Colin Kaepernick thing, talking about how disgraceful his thing was and how these players who kneel needed to be dealt with for being like, basically traitors and shit like that. So and mind you, a lot of this stuff that came out today was stuff that he said in 2018. So it's even more recent than the first email. So this guy has a huge long paper trail of sending emails with very, very like fucked up language. But it's not just sending the emails. He was sending it through official league channels. Man was using his work email to be a fucking like racist, homophobic, misogynist, like bigotrous piece of shit.
I mean, is coach a real jab? But I just gotta look at that. I'm like, what is the culture in jobs related to sports that allows you to just kind of talk like that? I mean, I'll fuck around because we just saw what happened with Blizzard. So I'm not saying like other workplaces are inherently good and sports workplaces are bad, but like when I hear that he's sending these kind of emails in official work channels, I just think, do you not conceive of this place as like your job where you must act professionally? It does make me kind of wonder what the vibe there is. And,
especially a job in which your employee base, over 60% is are minorities.
Which brings up another point I was about to make. We had a brief conversation before we started the podcast about comparing this to other situations. And one of the things that makes this unique to me, uniquely problematic, is that he is in a position of power, right? Like I don't know exactly how the sports ball world works. I don't know how much power he has in like who gets a job and who doesn't, but I assume he has like some say, right? Like if not making the decisions.
He pretty much has, of course, outside of the on-field decisions and things like that, as far as the games are concerned, he does have say on who like can be picked to his team, like what players he thinks should be brought to the team and things like that. Like there's some, capacity like that. He has, a couple of bosses above him, but I guess you could, if you were to structure coach into a natural business plan, GM would be probably like your regional manager, or GM would probably, or like district manager would be district manager. CEO would probably be your regional manager, and then the owner is basically your national leadership thing. So he's up there. He's the manager. He's management. Like he's not just a cog. He right. Has this, he's up there in management.
And this leads into my point. It's you had sent me a tweet and somebody was, mentioning that he gets fired for saying such and such. It's like, when you're in that position, you saying those kind of things is not just a matter of opinion, because you have impact on what kind of jobs other people could get. You know what I mean? That's not just a shitty opinion that you have, because now we have to worry about, all right, in his case, he was deriding the idea of having a gay football player. Does that mean you're going to discriminate against somebody being on your team purely because they're gay? That is right. Employee discrimination, right? There are laws here. Like it's not as simple as just saying like, oh, he was just sharing opinions on emails. Like, no, it has real world consequences to people's real world jobs.
Yeah, like the Colin Kaepernick thing, his, feelings towards that whole situation and players kneeling. So there's some players who probably knelt, like in Colin Kaepernick included, that he probably may have had the opinion that they would never work for him because of their, stance on that situation.
Right. And that feels like that needs to be considered. It's not something to ignore. And I just want to point that out, that his position makes it uniquely problematic for him to just be out here espousing these kind of ideas. And that's, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just typical in the sports ball realm, but no, it matters for.
Yeah, especially
if you take it away from like the sports ball realm and look at it as a matter of employment, it fucking matters.
But no, it's like think about this. Think about if your immediate boss was to be found out to have said some things in that nature to you. And what if you and your like fellow employees mainly consisted of minorities? How would you
mine
feel?
does, so that would be
Well, okay, perfectly. So how would you feel that this guy is, you know, saying these things, whether it was to you or not, doesn't matter. He's saying these things about people of your culture, your race, whatever.
I mean, it's going to impact everything, right? It's going to, first of all, it's just going to make the workplace uncomfortable generally, but more to the point, anytime, say I don't get a promotion or a raise or whatever, it's going to come up as like a possibility, you know, even if that's not the basis behind their decision, it affects everything about the workplace once that happens.
Yeah, and now think about how this would affect you being the leader of 53 men and a bunch of coaches and things like that, who mainly consist of minorities. You're going to, in a sport where you're asking these people to put their bodies on the line and do everything they can to win a game and help you keep your job, essentially, because winnings and losses matter a lot to coaches and whether or not they keep their jobs. And these players having the ability to get these wins for you and want to like follow you into this whole thing and go with you and try to get you that W. How you think they feeling that they got to sit here knowing that you fucking feel the way you feel? Like, so yeah. So the team decided to let him go today. And I don't have an issue with its consequences. I mean, shit. For them, they don't want to lose revenue, you know, from fans not wanting to show up to games and things like that. They don't want, you know, TV to shy away from showing the game and having this guy on TV. You know, that's going to cause problems. They don't want to deal with this all season. So yeah, he had to go. Yeah.
I'm doubtful that they'd have to pay that much of a consequence, but I mean, like I said, I'm fine getting rid of him just for the reasons I said. Like, he is actually a workplace problem.
No, it's sadly sad to say this, but sports can be a lot more crueler than regular jobs when it comes to things like that, because that shit can affect your bottom line a little bit more, at least in the immediate. Maybe not in totality, but in the immediate, it would have caused a little friction. Because, you know, the thing about the NFL is league revenue is shared for the most part. So what affects one team can potentially affect all teams. And you got fucking, you know, 32 different like rich white men who own teams who don't want their money fucked with. And that's the thing. If his thing could fuck with the owner's money, his owner's money, it may could fuck with somebody else. And they're not going to have you fuck with their money. Let's be honest.
That's fine.
Like, it may not have happened, but the potential that it could happen would be the biggest driving force. Because, like I said, in sports, it could flip a lot faster. Like, you could see the change in like decrease in jersey sales. They're not a great team anyway, so it would hurt that you're a great team. You're a middling team that also has issues like that. Just like the coach who had the issue with the young lady and getting caught with her. They're horrible. Nobody wants to come to the games anyway. And it's not unfair to say that his behavior, which it's not just that, he has a whole bunch of other things that have bothered people, but it's not unfair to say that this is going to potentially keep people from not wanting to fuck with that team even more. because it goes beyond just the fans. Like, who's going to want to come play for this guy? You know what I mean? You need free agents to come to that team. Like, people probably won't want to come and play for that team, knowing they have him as a coach. Like, good play. They may lose players from the current team, good players, because they don't want to fuck with this dude. So they're not going to risk sports. Yeah, no. They're going to exercise the problem as quickly as they can.
I mean, it's a fair reason. But what is this? There's plenty of reasons to say fuck up for this dude.
Like, maybe if he was like winning championships and they were one of the best teams out, he would probably get a lot more rope. But yeah, he didn't do anything to give himself any type of rope. So it was a pretty simple decision.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get a nice bit of sports ball education today too, so that's good. He did something. There's one positive to his idiocy is that I got to learn some more sports ball shit.
Yeah, I mean, because you got to think, we've had players play in the biggest game after being involved in the case in which they were accused of being a part of a man being stabbed and killed.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a true story. So, but this was the best player on their defense, so he had rope. You know what I mean?
And before you even said he had rope, like, just to start that sentence, but this was the best player on their defense, I was just like, oh my God.
Exactly.
The fact that you can even say that. That's how that sentence.
That's how it goes. Like, it's a very bad way to say it, but that's the reason why he played. Because he copped the plea. He testified on his friends. They didn't charge him with anything. Because he didn't get charged with anything and he cooperated, it's fine. So what, you were in the car when that guy got stabbed to death in the place that you should have been. It's cool. Go play.
Fair enough. You know what? I need to quit this computer side shit. I need to do a sport and do it so good I can just get away with shit.
I mean, dude, I'm telling you, like, we can spend a whole podcast going over stories of people who've done things and who've gotten, like, shit glanced over. Serious things. You think people standing for R. Kelly is bad, man. It's some sports ball people. Tell you, like, it's dirty. Anyway, moving on from that, that's kind of bad. Damn. I don't think I've did anything to help people want to get involved in watching sports or participating in sports at all. If anything, I've helped like grow the dissension towards sports.
I mean, you got me to want to participate in sports. I just need to get good enough where, like, I'm gonna join like the UFC, and then, like, if I can just get the belt, Dana will protect me from anything.
I mean, shit. How many times has John Bones Jones had accidents, including one accident in which somebody died, and he still came back and forth? So,
like, I went into a good field for like a decent amount of upper middle class money, I guess, but like, I didn't go into the right field to escape accountability.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a name where like anybody gives a shit if I fuck up. They're just gonna throw me under the bus. You know what I mean? But like,
yeah, all you gotta do is to be a really good player.
I need the kind of fame where some rich white motherfucker depends on my success and therefore has a vested interest in me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be football.
Right now, nobody has a vested interest.
I mean, that would be
nobody with power.
Just about any major sport. Yeah, they will find a way.
I don't have a rich white benefactor. That's my next goal in life. I need to have a rich white man standing behind me, ready to go throw down.
Yeah.
to protect his bottom line,
Dude,
aka me.
all you gotta do is just create the next big thing for your company. You in there.
That's not that easy because there's many engineers.
Yeah. You just gotta be the one though.
And a new one will come along. But I'm preventing you from moving on to whatever you were about to go to.
Oh no, the last thing I guess would be the Dave Chappelle stuff. So Dave Chappelle has had a bit more controversy after his latest comedy special on Netflix, The Closer, in which he addressed the you know, response to his transgender joke from Sticks and Stones. Now, you said you didn't finish watching it, right?
No, I watched it.
So you've watched it all. So you've heard all the jokes. Now I've only heard it through clips and through like references. And I can say from my perspective, I am not of the ilk that he needs to be canceled. But I do think he needs to really have a conversation with a sensible person in his life and realize that you might want to not pick a fight where you don't need to pick a fight. That's my whole thing. Like, I think he was wrong for how he handled this. I don't think that it's a weird thing because it's funny. I was having a conversation right before we recorded with a friend about this. And he made mention how, like, you know how it is, like, you know, he's a comedian. He's just telling a joke. And I said, it's not that simple, especially in this day and time with comedians, because a lot of times comedians aren't just telling jokes. Like, I would say since George Carlin, most comedians don't just simply tell jokes. At least most of the more popular comedians. If you go through the history, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Chris Rock, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, one of the things that they all hold in common is that their jokes aren't just joke, they're social commentary. So you can't hide behind that it's just a joke and you guys need to, like, you know, stop being so sensitive or get over it. Nor do I think that you should get angry when people have an issue with the joke, because you're not above criticism. And I think that's part of the problem of his response. Was it that, to me, it comes off as, how dare you criticize me for this? And I felt like instead of addressing it properly, he kind of doubled down and kind of like, you know, stomped his feet and like refused to move and budge. I don't think that he was completely, you know, obstinate about it, but he was a little bit like willfully ignorant in some areas to me. And that's my problem, because it's just like, you don't need to be that way. I don't think comparing people's struggles was always smart anyway. I think that was the problem with the joke in Sticks and Stones, where he did the joke about, you know, some people don't have equal seats in the car type thing. Like, I found that, I didn't find it offensive, but I found it not smart. And it didn't make sense to me. But to come back and kind of like try to put it back on people for responding that way, the way that they did about it, I thought it was just the wrong move. But I'm not sitting here trying to say cancel him or that he's not funny or that he's never going to be funny anymore and all that. The man's funny as fuck. It's Dave Chappelle. Yeah. But I think it was just something that he misfired on, and it happens. Yeah.
I mean, first let me say I like Sticks and Stones better than this one. I mean, he opened it up and he just kind of mentioned, like, by design, this one was meant to be sort of like a follow-up / response to a couple of the previous special, and I think this is like the 5th or whatever in this batch he's done the last couple of years, which is kind of crazy. He's done a lot of them. But,
yeah.
So in fairness to him, like, he did frame it as though, like, by design, that was the purpose of this special, was to be sort of a response to the backlash / response that he got from his previous specials. That said, just as a piece of work, I didn't find it as funny. I definitely laughed, well enough through it, but I felt like he was too focused on dealing with this.
And that's what I heard. Like, he spent quite a bit of time trying to, I don't know, I guess, qualify what he said in 6. I don't understand why he would spend so much time on it.
I mean, normally in his specials, he touches like a lot of different stories and scenarios, and you know what I mean? Unless like here, right. I mean, he definitely gave you a bunch of different stories, but they felt like they all largely centered around this particular issue. So it was like, I just kind of got tired of it. Yeah, I wasn't offended or anything. I was more just kind of like bored and surprised to be bored, given that I've typically found it to be very funny. So I'm just commenting on it as a piece of comedy. I was like, it's not that it's not funny, but it's definitely not the strongest piece he's ever done. Like, I'd probably put it at the bottom of all his specials I've seen. I'm not just talking about, the set he's done in recent years. I'm talking about his older shit too.
Overall, so
yeah. Not bad, but yeah, I think you got a little too on your horse about dealing with this situation. You could have talked about that for like 10 minutes. But I would like to kind of, I guess, take what you said earlier about it, it not being that simple earlier on, because after seeing that, I had read this. It wasn't one of the articles you sent me. It was like the day I watched it. I had seen some like really quick article. I can't remember if it was where it was written, maybe the AP or some shit like that. But they were very angry and responding to some of the shit he said in there. And I just thought it's such a weird thing to talk about comedy in this way, because, to your point, like, I think people simplify it in both ways. Either a lot of people will say like, oh, it's just jokes, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can't really say that just to sweep everything under the fucking rug and never deal with anything. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think that's way too strong a move to just never feel the need to fucking address anything, because even jokes can go too far. Like, I'm sure everybody's had a friend where they told what a joke they probably shouldn't have and had to apologize. So I don't think something being a joke is 100% absolving, but I think people also oversimplify on the other side. So when I was reading this dude's article, and it was a dude, actually, but like, I think a lot of people who write these articles have this tendency to overcorrect in the other direction and respond to a piece of comedy as though it was a well thought out, discussion on CNN or like a political think piece, as though it was like a very serious, straight up, like if I wrote like a paper or something for publication where I have like very serious thoughts, I'm really thinking it out, blah, blah, blah. And then you respond to that with criticism. That's kind of more straightforward. You know what I mean? Because I'm not joking in the paper. I'm clearly trying to argue for a serious point that I believe. Whereas with comedy, we always use the term like half joking, but I use it a lot too. But like, even when I make a joke and I say like, I'm half serious, half kidding or whatever, even I barely kind of know where the line is where I'm like fucking around, where I'm serious. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like inching toward a serious point, but I'm also like, that part where I said I was going to fucking murder everybody, probably not accurate. So when I'm reading this dude's article and he's like taking quotes that Chappelle said in that piece, I just thought, this feels disingenuous, because I can't remember what the line was, but he took it, one of the examples he took was from the piece. I just thought that line that you're harping on was largely just like a setup piece for the punchline he gave like 5 minutes later. You know what I mean? And I guess that's what I point to. Like, it makes it really hard to analyze and criticize comedy in a straightforward way, because it's very blurry as to like how much of it is serious and how much of it's fucking around. Because there were things he said in there that I could take issue with. Like, what was the line? It's something like, you know, everybody in this room had to pass through the legs of a woman or whatever, you know, something that I could take like more general issue with, I guess.
Yeah, I saw that where he was like, you know, because there's gender, you know, you can't dismiss gender.
I mean, that was one of the things where I was like,
and that's one of those things that made me say that what I said to you about how like he understands, but he doesn't understand. Like he understands, and when I say that, what I mean is there are certain things that we all can we understand that there are trans people, homosexual, you know, whatever, people who identify in a certain way. And we understand they have their reasons. And as human beings, they have a right to do that. But there's always going to be something inherently in there that we don't understand, even if it's minor. Like I would say for me, the don't understand in that situation is never having the desire or never knowing what it feels like to feel like I am not myself and I need to do something because I feel like I'm trapped inside a different person's body, or like I'm not comfortable with who I am as far as my gender or how I identify, or, you know, being attracted to men, things like that. Like, I don't understand that. So for me to kind of did what he did with that joke in Sticks and Stones, where he kind of like unintentionally pushed down the serious nature of the problems that they go to by making that statement about how like there's like there's no equity in, you know, problems, so stop acting like you got it as bad as we have it, in a way. You know, that's how the joke came off. You know, it's like maybe in your eyes it doesn't, because you're reflecting off the things that you're going through. But I have no idea what it is like to be a trans person and to fear for my life, because I think some guy is going to see me, he's going to come up and talk to me, and then when he finds out that I'm a man, his fucking homophobia is going to make him react in a way that he wants to kill me because I made him think he liked me or some shit. Like, you know what I mean? Things like that. Like, I will never understand things like that. I will never understand being disowned by my family because I'm attracted to the same sex, anything like that, like how bad it is. So I can't tell you that your fucking struggle is or isn't as equal as mine, because they're both struggles, but they're not equitable in how we struggle. So I can't do that.
I mean, the parts that I took kind of issue with, it's not like, again, it's not that I was offended by them. They were just kind of intellectually weak, or in some cases like wrong.
Right.
You know, it's like the line about, you know, everybody passing through the legs of a woman. It's like, I guess, but that's a real oversimplification of the larger issue. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's what the issue.
A lot of like, some of the examples he used, and he did kind of try to more explicitly address it, but part of the issue was a lot of the times when he was talking about it, and I think this is where people are referring to him pitting social groups against each other, is a lot of times when he's referring to like transgender people, he's referring to white people. And he kind of brought this up in the special at one point. I wish if I had thought ahead, I might have brought like some quotes or something, but like.
No, I know the quote that you're talking about, because I just recently listened to a podcast that they discussed it, where he made a comment, and I'm going to get this completely wrong, but it was to the effect of, you know, all of this is a problem until you basically realize again that you're also white. As if to say, well, yeah, I got these issues, but at least I'm white, so I'm safe here. Which is not true, because one of the biggest issues, like around here too, is Black transgender men. They're getting killed like crazy because homophobia is something that's serious in the Black community. And when it comes to transgender men, like especially around here, like I see transgender people all the time. I've been walking at a train and I'm like, wow, look at her. And then they turn around and I'm like, oh, you know. Now, did I feel like I needed to punish that person for me like mistaken like that or like thinking that way? No. But there are people out here in the city who fuck them up for that shit. Just random shit. And it happens way too often. So you can't say that. Or more specifically, the point that they were making on the podcast is like, yo, you can't tell me that you don't have a gay person in your family. There's few of us who can say that we don't have somebody who's homosexual. So it's not a white problem. And for him to say that line, it was kind of like you said, intellectually weak, because it's like, you know better. You know that's not the way it is.
Right. He did explicitly say at point that he was talking about, like, you know, he brought up the whiteness, and I was like, how do I say this? It's like, again, you're kind of just brushing over what is actually a whole universe of complicated shit and focusing on, you know, this part or that part. It's like in some places you feel just a little ignorant, I guess. In other places it's just like, you're not the one that I don't even know how to address it. So like, well, a lot of it is not like so horribly offensive or hate filled or anything like that. It's just like, this isn't a smart enough beast to deal with it.
Yeah,
and I feel like the way I said that sounds more mean than I mean it, but like it's not thought out enough.
No,
to try and address things like that.
I understand what you mean, because like from my perspective, where I see it is like, you're so obsessed with trying to prove why the people shouldn't be upset at you for what you said. You're making it worse by trying to like justify it in a very like almost willfully ignorant way in some cases when some of the things that he said. And it's just like, you didn't have to say anything else at all. Like, the most you probably could have said is maybe in a press conference or a press release, like, look, I don't hate transgender people. It wasn't intended to be spiteful. I wasn't trying to, you know, denounce people or anything like that. You know, I wasn't trying to offend anybody, and just leave it there. That's all you had. It's like, it's really all he had to say. And he could have moved on and did a whole special where he could have avoided that situation. But he chose not to, which is what weirds me out. And that's why I say you don't seem to understand, because you're so focused on trying to validate what you did. Like, don't. It's no need to validate. Like, I understood why you told those jokes or why you said that, but now you're making it look like you didn't just say a joke. The more you keep going on this, like it starts to become less of a joke, because you know the old saying, it stops being a joke when you have to explain it. And that's the problem. It's like, you should know this as a comedian. When you have to explain it, it's not as funny as you think it is. It loses that, and it just didn't have to be. I don't think it had to be addressed at all. Like, and it's just like, yo, somebody needs to sit and have a conversation with you and let you know, like, yo, dude, come on, stop being an old black man right now, because that's what he comes off to be as, like, you know, and you know exactly what I mean, like the older black people who don't like want to give up the fact that times have changed, type shit.
Sure. Although it's a strange balance, because he can like touch some of those things and make like a funny point. Like at one point he was, you know, kind of poking at the, I guess you call him like the Me Too movement or whatever. And he was just kind of poking at like strategy. Like he was talking about like, what, again, I wish I had actual lines, but he was like kind of poking fun at like the pussy hat thing. And it's like, you know, what was that really supposed to do?
Like talking about like, you know, them dressing up in all black. It was like, no, why don't you say, I'm not going to work unless you treat this person fairly? Like,
Right.
and
Like
I could say it because when tested on my morals and the things that bothered me, I walked away from $50 million. So why don't you make it strong enough, like, move like that and not just
I think one of the things he said is like, I can't remember if it was like a legal thing, but like, why don't you hire, as a woman with the power, why don't you hire a woman who's like a lawyer or some shit like that? And it's like, he delivered I'm describing them like it was a whole fucking political speech, but
I know what
he
you
delivered
mean,
them in a funny way to make a point that's like kind of legitimate.
Yeah, it
right.
made a very salient point.
So it is possible to touch that kind of stuff and make a decent point and be humorous. I don't, at least in a couple of parts where he was trying to touch the trans thing, again, it's like, I think the water got a little too murky for you there. And I don't think you cared enough to think too hard about that issue. So it's like, it didn't land in a few cases. That's not to say that nothing he said around it was funny, but I guess to your point about like, if you have to explain it, is it funny anymore? It's like it got too complicated, too murky, too fucking weird to really try to address properly. So I think he just kind of lost the thread there. But again, to my point about when we respond to it, because I was taking issue with this guy who wrote that article. It's like, yes, you can't say that everything is a joke just to ignore it, but you can't also respond to every fucking line a comedian gives as though it was 100% serious either. Because the quote he gave, and I wish I could remember, it's like, I can see why you might take some offense to this line, but this line was pretty much just a setup for a punchline a few minutes later. Like, so it's not fair or honest to address it as though it was a serious political point either, because it clearly wasn't meant to be.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. It's a sad blowback in this day and age. It's like, once you do something that you can call out on somebody, everybody looks to find something to call out and to blow everything up more. And
like when I was reading that dude's article, I thought, you feel like somebody who read the transcript and not watched it in context. Like you feel like somebody who was like scanning for lines that were problems.
Right, because even though I didn't watch it, I was able to get enough out of it to know, like, he wasn't trying to just be some hate mongering motherfucker like people are trying to make him out to be. Like, no. Like I said, I think like he was so focused on the idea of trying to justify that it came out a much worse, but he didn't need to neither justify or, he didn't need to cower and grovel and beg forgiveness either. Like I said, like, it wasn't my intention to do this. Like, I don't have issues. It's just like, I made a joke that didn't land, and I said some things that, looking back now, probably shouldn't have said. Maybe, my bad.
You should just not say anything. Like,
yeah, like, but I'm just saying,
if it mattered, then he should just not say it, because like he wasn't gonna go and like do any serious research to like change his mind, and nothing he said was like that fucking crazy. So like, it wasn't really worth addressing in the first place.
Yeah, he could have let it go and he could have moved on. Like, but he didn't let it go. He dug in, and I think that's why you're getting so many people having all these think pieces. Like I said, to me, like, I will openly say that I think that he shouldn't have said what he said and did what he did. Beyond that, hey, let's move on. Like, I'm not his friend, so I can't have that discussion with him. I know that if I was his friend, I would have that discussion with him. But hopefully he has people around him who have discussions with him. More importantly, hopefully he's done with it. I hope he's done with it. I hope that he doesn't let this be, because I saw something stupid, like people like, oh, he's doing this because he needs this so he can still let people know that he's funny. He needs the attention because he's not funny anymore. Bullshit. Dave Chappelle's still funny as fuck. Again, he don't need to talk about these issues to fucking make it special or to have you watch a special. Most people are gonna watch a Dave Chappelle special because people like Dave Chappelle and think he's funny as fuck.
I mean, like I said, this was probably his weakest one, but it was one in like a set of 5 he's done. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it was called the closer because it was the last two. A crazy set when you really think about it. Just there's comedy, and I think he said he was done talking about it after, like, when he ended. He's like, now I'm not talking about it anymore until blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, whatever. You talked about it a lot in this special, so I didn't need to hear you talk about it more.
I hope he sticks to that and don't talk about it, like, because it doesn't need to be talked about anymore. It's
I hope you got out of your system, I guess. But yeah, I guess I just, the reason I criticize those article writers is because it does not feel like a genuine conversation. Like, it definitely feels like you're scanning for problems to combat. Because, for example, like, I watch what's his name, Bill Maher. Sometimes Bill Maher says just like genuinely stupid things, but sometimes I like see an article and the thing they decide to pick on wasn't the stupid thing he said. In a serious way, it'll be like some dumb joke he made. And I was like, there's plenty of serious things he said that you could have actually criticized. Yeah. But you picked a punchline that was not really, it was like, say, sarcastic or something. And I'm like, this is how I can tell I'm looking at people who don't watch the shit in context or really listen. They're just kind of scanning for something to fight about and make a headline over.
Yeah.
And I don't want to come off like, oh, I got to defend my hero, Dave Chappelle, or whatever. But like, one thing I noticed is like a lot of people don't mention, like, in that special, he told like a very beautiful story about this trans woman who I guess was a friend of his. She was like,
I heard about that.
Budding comedian, essentially, that he had met. He tried to get her up, but essentially he allowed her to like open for him, even though she didn't have very much experience. It was like a nice story. And it went on for a while. It was like, it was a beautiful story, funny story. And then he hit us with the fact that she eventually committed suicide and talked about the money he was raising up for her daughter and all that shit. And I was like, it's actually like a very touching story. I just thought, nobody, at least in the couple articles I've met, that were criticizing, it's like nobody mentions this fact that he brought this up, and then he's talking about her in this glowing way, done this beautiful story about this trans woman helping out her daughter and all that shit. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm going up like, yeah, I'm defending Dave Chappelle. He's the champion of trans rights and all this shit. But when I see like articles that say like, he's a hate monger, he's transphobic, he hates them, I'm like, I think he's dumb in a few points, but I don't think it's fair to say he hates them either.
Yeah,
that and clearly doesn't seem true either. Like,
and it's funny because I've heard it brought up, and I've heard people say like, something that's sadly true. Like, while it's probably like, while it is definitely probably a genuine story, again, in the context of things, it wouldn't surprise me if people's attitude was, yeah, okay, so you brought up the one trans friend that you had. It comes off as, I don't hate white people, I don't hate black people because I have a black friend type thing in the midst of the whole storm. And again, I don't think that's something that he did intentional. But like I said, in the context of things, it could come up that way. And I think he probably was really cool with this person, and because the person's family has actually come out and been like, they appreciated him talking about that, and they've always appreciated Dave Chappelle for the way that he gave their family member the opportunity and things like that. So
to be kind of led back into his point about, instead of like dressing in black and wearing pussy hats, why don't you do something more productive? I was like, I mean, he did give like a budding trans comedian like a huge spotlight that she never would have gotten otherwise. So it's like, again, like, I think there's things that he said that were like dumb and or wrong, and I'm totally down to criticize him for those things, and I can, but like, I don't think it's fair to say that he's transphobic and hates trans people like that.
No.
To me, that's not right either.
Like I said, for me, the whole crux is
the whole
equity of people's struggles thing. I hate when people try to do that because, again, I don't know your struggle the way that you may not know mine, or to a point that was made again. The podcast is called Black on Black Cinema, by the way. So if you guys want to look it up, they made the point about how, like, you know, it's just like most people are going to deal with these certain issues probably more than others, of course, like transgender and homosexuality, but they may not deal with race issues because you don't have to deal with like certain things until it comes around you, and you're less likely to have like a white person in fucking rural Arkansas is less likely to probably have to deal with black people. So they wouldn't have to know what it is to deal with the idea of like dealing with a family member who dates somebody who's black and coming to grips with their racism. Whereas homosexuality is just something that's, you know, it's the person, how they developed, it's how they were born, things like that. So there's more chances that you have to deal with that than you do that. So you can't say that there's inequity in this because you've never dealt with it. So for a white person to say that they don't understand, you know, why black people feel a certain way, well, you're not around. If you're not around black people, how would you really know? Same thing when it comes to like, you know, trying to like say that inequity, it makes it weird that he has a trans friend and he could say that. So that's why it's just a very weird thing with this situation with him to me.
I mean, again, like I think some of the complicating issue comes from the fact that he's sort of in a not useful way dragging the race issue into it with whiteness.
Yeah.
So it's like he's I mean, one, it's usually not worth it to like pit social issues against each other in the first place, but two, he's making it even more complicated by doing that. So it's like, and that's why earlier I said like he's touching them in a not very smart, thought out way. It's like you are both complicating them and not addressing them fully either. So it's like, and that's probably why I say like, don't respond to this dude like he's giving you some sort of master's thesis that you can really well thought out written paper that you can really respond to, because it's not really that either.
Yeah, that's why like at the end I just said like yo, don't cancel it. This is somebody who's trying to fight being called something and is not realizing what it is that he's doing that's pissing people off. That's all. I just don't think he realizes what it is that he did that pissed people off. And like I said, he needs somebody to come and talk to him and let him know, like, this is why this was a problem. We're not but it's hard. In his defense, I totally understand, because I know he came out and the first thing he was like, you know, all these people saying all this shit about me on Twitter. Well, fuck Twitter. This shit's not real anyway, you know. But I understand that because the reaction from people, especially on social media, is to just go all fucking in and not try to like have any context or any nuance in the conversation. Like, he became public enemy number one wholeheartedly, and being put in that position, you know, I think part of his response kind of was ego too, but taking that back, like, if I say something that is dumb and I'm not trying to be harmful, it ain't going to help the situation by you deciding to just like try to destroy me and bury me like as a person, and, you know, frame me as this person to get me to understand what's wrong, because we're human beings and we're going to get, you know, sensitive, and some of us are going to like fucking try to hulk up and fight back.
And I might be trying to say that, but like, to the extent that people overreact on that thing, they're also kind of feeding into this instinct people have to fight back. Because it is actually true that people, especially on social media, will go too far and like overreact and try to, you know, quote unquote, cancel you or whatever. again, to his point, it's probably like a loud minority. But there is something to that. And I think a lot of the people who do stuff like his move here, they're inspired to do that as a counter reaction to this problem. So it's like, you're not really helping when you start doing this shit because you're feeding into their instinct to counterpunch too.
Yeah.
By not really like giving a fair, balanced, calm response.
Because I could imagine, like, again, referring back to the story about his friend, it probably kind of hurts, like, that people think that he hates transgender people when he had this friend that he looked out for. Say what you will, if it's just like if it's like the equivalent of the white person having a friend to like dismiss all that shit. If that was his friend and he lost his friend, and you're trying to say that he hated his friend.
But one of the points he brought up about this woman, which, you know, I mean, it should also be noted that he was calling her a woman most of the time outside of the punchline at the end where he called her a man, but like, again, part of the joke. Part of his reason for doing this is because, like I said, the response to like the backlash to previous special right now, vitriolic people can be on social media. One of the points he brought up was like, you know, this trans woman would defend him on social media, and a ton of people dragged her for doing that. And that's shitty too, like, because I'm sure from her, I don't know if that, you know, led into her eventually taking her own life or not. I feel like he tried to say something about it, but I didn't hear what he said. But I was like, that must be fucking horrible to have like essentially your own community turn on you for siding with Dave. So it's like, it's the larger point of like, you know, cancel culture and social media reaction, all that shit. Like, it's not completely fucking wrong either, because even she got that kind of fired just for kind of associating with him, which I guess was part of his point. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's I would say I guess you can watch it. I guess it's on fucking Netflix. If you have Netflix, you can watch it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not my favorite special, so I can't imagine watching it twice, like I have done with other specials of his. But
yeah, I will say, for me, this is just another example of how social media has kind of dissolved the ability to have conversations like what me and you have just had about things. And to actually, like I said, like, both of us have our issues with it. Both of us have our points of defense for him, or what have you. Neither one of us are just totally dismissing that there is possibly reasons, points, counterpoints, things to think about when it comes to this, and to not just totally black and white the situation and equate either he's all in hateful or fuck those people, they need to shut the fuck up and not feel bad, sorry for themselves, anything like that. Because there's a whole fucking conversation to this that both sides have a point to. And I feel like when you get these social media, the social media reactants, what you are getting is the lack of ability to have a conversation. All you're doing is picking fucking sides and just running rampant with it. You know, when you do those types of responses, I need people to really stop and think more before they start doing this shit. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, I digress. Fuck Dave Chappelle, cancel him. Like, whatever. That motherfucker's next special we gonna watch. So shut the fuck up. Anyway,
he claims he's not doing one for a while, so.
Well, he shouldn't. He just fucking did, like, yo, think about this. All these specials came in within the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, I think
that's a lot of work.
Like batches of 2 to 2, and then this was the last 5th.
That's a lot of work, especially considering that he had to do some of this during a pandemic as well. Fuck, he tired. Go chill. And he did a couple of Saturday Night Lives in between that shit. Yeah. Go chill, relax. More importantly, go chill and just let people get over this shit and then come back, please. Like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That beats it for the topics. Anything else you would, unless you want to talk about Superman, which I don't really feel like talking about because
I don't give a shit about it. Be honest.
it ain't that big of a deal, people. He's like, for all of you talking about they took my character and did this to him. It ain't Clark Kent, so shut the fuck up. For all of you talking about this is a publicity stunt, whatever. Y'all, come on. Guess what? You're gonna see more representation of different cultures and things in all media as the world changes to a place where it's more acceptable for these people to be a part of life. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, like
I haven't read
come
DC
on.
in a bit anyway, but like even when I stopped caring about Jonathan once I think it was Bendis that aged him up for no fucking reason. So fuck it. I wasn't reading that story anyway. I don't give a shit. Even if I was, I don't care that he's gay.
Besides, Superman sucks as a character anyway. Let's have a conversation about that. God damn it. Fuck Superman. All right. I've properly left y'all for another thing to try to cancel somebody with. So any suggestions for media? I say media because I think we've been reading lately, have we?
I did download a book, but you know, it's one of those like intellectual books where I actually have to. Some of the problem with some of the books I go for is like I need to be able to focus on them, and really, especially if they're like making points about like logic and math and graphs, and statistics. I'm like, fuck, all right, I actually got to listen. So sometimes I'll opt for just like a show instead. And even then, I have to pick shows that are in English, even though I'm a big fucking anime fan. Because I have something I can just play in the background and just kind of look up and listen to. If I have to read subtitles, again, too much focus when I'm trying to do other shit. All that to say that I've been rewatching / watching episodes I haven't seen before of Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated series. It's long, but if people like Star Wars, I guess I'd recommend it.
Oh man, we should have a discussion about Star Wars. But what we will be having is a discussion about Marvel's What If that will be coming up soon, as that has finished. We did the WandaVision, we did Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we did Loki. So we're gonna do that. I feel like we have to review all the Marvel shows. So we'll do this leading up to Hawkeye, which I have somehow found myself very excited about. I don't know why.
When does that drop?
November. Let's see. November 24th. So right before Thanksgiving.
So we'll probably be talking about Shang-Chi first.
Yeah, because I'll finally have seen it by then, I think. Because Disney Day is earlier that month. So yeah, I actually get to see it unless I decide to go walk into a theater and, you know, get over my cooties. You know.
Outside of being vaccinated and masked, part of
Phobia.
the reason I'm comfortable doing is because I don't like going to the theaters at night when all the other assholes go. So I always go like when the sun is up and nobody else wants to go. So nobody's sitting next to me anyway.
Yeah, I feel like I need to like just find a day that I could take a couple of hours and just go sit in the theater and just be like, yeah. We won't discuss Venom, by the way, because that's not a Marvel movie. I don't care what y'all say.
I mean, I hope not, because then I have to actually go and watch it.
Yo, it comes
I
out the
have not
day
done
before
that.
Thanksgiving. That's crazy.
What does?
Hawkeye,
Oh,
November 24th. That's literally the day before Thanksgiving.
Christmas comes earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah. Pandemics do be making time fly. Anyway.
But yeah, that Star Wars series is I'd watch it. It's long, but like I said, it's in English, so I could just kind of like have it up while I'm working. So if you guys are interested in that, you're in for a bit of a long haul, but it's solid.
All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, watching. We appreciate it. Make sure to check us out on SoundCloud. And if you want to see the video, it's always available on this channel. We will maintain the weekly schedule leading up into the holidays, of course, because that's when it's going to get wrecked again, as always. But yeah, we appreciate it. All right, people, you guys take it easy. Please don't be racist. Don't be homophobic. Don't be misogynist. Get vaccinated. Don't be stupid. Just be a good person, please. All right. We will see you next time on The Reason Reborn. Peace.
Jesus, 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 Jesus.